Hello, this is Confabulation. I'm Pearl, she, her pronouns, and joining me today is
Michelle, she, her pronouns, and Ollie, he, him, or good boy.
and we're with our Sisters House, a domestic violence advocacy agency. If you or anyone you know is experiencing domestic violence, reach out to us at 253-383-4275 or visit our website at oursistershouse.com. Just the announcements for you guys. We are planning on bringing our holidays back this holiday season, and we are partnering with Me Central. So look out for more information on that on our website.
A quick note from the producer. We also have the Karaoke Ball event coming up on November 12th from 5 to 8 p.m. at Stadium High School. There's a $5 suggested donation at the door, but it is free to enter ultimately. And we are trying to raise money to cover for transportation fees when it comes to those fleeing active domestic violence situations. The theme for this event is Royal Purple, and we have two campaign fundraisers leading up to this event. One is where you can donate $1 to us to write your name on a purple butterfly that will be displayed at the Karaoke Ball event. You can find these butterflies at local Tacoma businesses. They include Matisse Beauty Supply, Boswick Cafe, and Lift Bridge Coffee. And we also have the Krispy Kreme fundraising event where you can buy a dozen donuts for $15 and 50% of the proceeds are donated to our sister's house. So please, if you would like any donuts or would like to sing some karaoke or have your name displayed on a butterfly, make sure to find any one of those fundraiser events. And there's more information on our social medias and linked in the descriptions of wherever it is you are tuning in from. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the episode.
So today's topic is one of my favorite topics. We are talking about emotional support animals as well as some service animals. We're excited to share with you about usserviceanimals.org. usserviceanimals.org has provided us with this code for our listeners. We will receive a small commission from any sales from this code. A service animal is any dog or miniature horse trained to perform a task for the benefit of an individual with a disability, including physical, sensory, psychiatric, intellectual, or other mental disability. This definition is from Americans with Disability Act, or the ADA. Their titles pertain to the access of disability people in state and local government services, public accommodations, and commercial facilities. Under the ADA, state and local governments, businesses, and nonprofit organizations that serve the public generally must allow service animals to accompany people with disabilities in all areas of the facility where the public is allowed to go. So basically, service animals are allowed to go anywhere a person is allowed to go. There's only very few exceptions to this rule. In hospitals, the only place that a service animal is not allowed to go to is in the actual emergency operating room. Now with airports, the only animal that is allowed to go on a plane is a dog. Miniature horses are service animals, but they can no longer go on the plane due to the safety of them. And certain religious buildings can make exceptions, but a lot of places will actually, if you talk to the religious leader, they will accommodate depending on the leader of the organization. So, but usually if a person can go there, the animal can go there.
So how do you recognize a service animal?
That's a great question. There are only two questions that people can ask. When somebody has a service animal, it is a medical tool. And it's really important that people understand that. When people have real service animals, and important to know, they have tasks and they are doing a job. And so there's only two questions that people can ask if you have them. Is the dog a service animal required because of a disability? Is one question that they can ask. If it's a miniature horse, which is very not as common, but it's sometimes for people who have allergies to animals or to dogs, they may have it. And then what work or task does the dog, has the dog been trained to perform? Those are the only two questions people can ask. It's not, you can't ask them, can I see the ID? They don't have to provide documentation for it. It's just the two, is the dog a service animal required because of a disability, and what work or task has the dog been trained to perform? A person with a disability is able to train their own dog or animal, miniature horse. It does not have to be trained by a professional, because people are able to train sometimes their own individual animal better because they know what their needs are. And sometimes an animal can pick up on things. They learn the task, even with animals that are trained by professionals. The animal actually learns new tasks and things on their own. So it's something that's kind of interesting. This is Ollie, or Ollivander. People will see him. He's actually a service dog. He works with us also at the agency as our mascot, and he is a service dog. He has learned more tasks the more he's with us, with me at the office, and he's also learned more tasks throughout the 7 years I've had him.
So my understanding of it, right, like people can't tell you to go just because they got allergies or they're scared dogs, right?
Oh, they totally have.
Yeah.
But they can't legally tell me to. And so, like, that's a thing that people will try. I think my favorite, least favorite, but favorite example is I've gone into a restaurant and they said, I was asking for like to go sit outside. I was trying to be accommodating anyway. They're seating inside and outside. I was planning on going to sit outside anyway. And they were like, okay, you can go outside. And I'm like, there's a shortcut right through. He's allowed to go with me right through. So it's important to know that some of us can go right through. And I didn't want to leave my party just because, like, I had him. And he was perfectly fine.
So I got a question about it. You mentioned restaurants. So when we're talking about the health, board and all that, and we're talking about allergies and contamination of food and dog hair, like, is that a concern that you receive at the restaurants?
So part of it is we have like, you keep your dog groomed, and it's partly you have to keep them work hygienic, right? You don't let a person who is, it's hard to have people around. You keep everybody around, right? Like, if somebody is disturbing in a restaurant, you don't have them in there, right? There are polite ways to say it is disturbing, but if a service dog is disruptive, they are not allowed there. So if for some reason the dog is out of hand for whatever reason, if it is disruptive, if they smell, that is a disruption. So he has to stay groomed. If he is growling and barking, he's not allowed to be there, or she's not allowed to be there. So, like, if they're begging for food, they're not allowed to be there. So, like, thinking of what is considered a disruption, it's important to know those things are disruptions, right? And grooming is etiquette.
Yeah. And so, like, the establishments that sell food and the dog hair, right? I guess those are two things that people are like, health codes, losing it. And you're saying that even with health codes and dog hair, the service animal can go in.
Oh, yeah. So there are people who may not think about the things that go into bringing a service animal with them. I think of it as, how much other things do I have to bring, right? So not everybody will do this with their service animal, but I know when I travel, I have, at the airplane, I always bring an extra blanket, so he has someplace else to lay down, so other people do not have to deal with that. So he has his own blanket. He will have an extra bowl, so we do not expect somebody to provide us a bowl to drink out of. So we we try to be as respectful to those allergies. And so understanding that. Now, he's also not a huge shedder, but we use anti-allergy. Not everybody does these things, right? But the idea is people have allergies, people have disabilities. And so using these things are really important, because what happens if, let's say, a random stranger goes into diabetic shock, right? And they have their service dog. That service dog could be the person that is able to go and tell somebody to call 911 because of what's in their backpack, right? Like they may have a note in their backpack, or they could have glucose, like medication in their backpack, and tell the owner before they drop. Like there are a lot of reasons people have service dogs that others don't know. And it could be a tiny dog. You don't know what the dog is trained to do. That's their task.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would be surprised that small dogs do actually a lot. We're the beginning of service dogs. The bigger dogs were labor dogs. And has changed as we've learned all the amazing things that animals can do and smell and sense. But yeah, I think people do have the assumption the smaller the dog, that can't be a service dog. But, you talked about travel and all that. So do you, what is it with, animal fees? So when you're getting on a plane, you're going to a hotel, or even renting, do you have to pay the fees and deposits for the service animal?
So these things have changed drastically over the years. And I mean, especially since COVID and things. Service dogs have, you do not pay for them, but it's not really about, they're medical for us. So it's not really about the fees for some of us. It's really not. They have to be with us. And thinking about the amount of accommodations and things like that, they really need to be with us for a reason. And so thinking about where we're going, what the amount of other things we have to think about is when do I have to take a break to take them to the bathroom? Because we all have to do that. How long can we go on a flight, or how am I going to get food there? The extra suitcase that I may need to bring because of the food, things like that people don't think about is kind of important. The time for exercise that they just don't think about. So it's the cost is not there, but there is extra cost with time that we have to plan that is just not thought about. It's just a different element that has to be added.
Yeah. And I know you were saying that people can train their own animal, but people do pay for training services or doggy daycares, the vet bills, and if you're someone with a disability, those are expenses that are beyond your control. You have to provide that for the animal. So talking about the service dogs, let's talk about the different types of service dogs, right? There's various ones. I believe Ollie over here, he helps you with.
So he can do, one of the things he does is I will have social anxiety, which is no problem sharing. He also will make sure I stay on schedules, wakes me up, goes to bed on time, reminds me to take my meds. He does a lot of tasks. He's also learned to acknowledge when I will have a seizure, and he can tell somebody else when that's going to happen, which he's done a couple of times. So he has learned a couple of skills that are very helpful. And he does tactile. He will touch me for certain skills. He keeps boundaries for me for anxiety. He tells me things. He will bark, which is, some people do not like barking. For me, it is actually a very comforting thing for anxiety to let me know that something's going to happen. So sometimes barking is actually a sign, and sometimes it is a task, which is something people should know. So just because a dog is barking, it doesn't always mean it is aggressive. It could actually be that they're talking to the owner. And so I think that's also something that you should be aware of.
So Ollie is classified as a sensory signal or a social signal dog, right? So he's assisting you and handling, repetitive movements, distracting movements, and that social anxiety. And then also that seizure response dog. So he's also the seizure response where he's, responding to your seizures and seeking help. And on that type, there are the three other types of dogs. So there's the psychiatric service dog, and they assist people with disabilities, detect psychiatric episodes. That's people with PTSD, interrupting like self-mutilation, things like cutting or pinching yourself, or harming yourself in such ways. There's the hearing or signal dogs, which I think a lot of people are very familiar with that, or the seeing eye dog. They kind of seeing them with the harness that they're, pointing the direction for people and guiding them. But it is more of these psychiatric sensory dogs and seizure dogs that people are less familiar with their tasks. And also because their harness is different, they don't have the guiding part. So I do think when you see that kind of like backpack on a dog, that should be assigned to someone that's like, this dog probably is in working mode, even if you don't see a specific thing that you might be used. Because many of the dog backpacks, they come differently. Some of them will explicitly say service dog, and other ones will just, have medication or various packs on it. So they all look different.
Right. And some people will put notes in their backpacks in case something happens. So to think about what a dog may have if something happens is actually something to think about as well. So every owner does something different. A really important thing for etiquette, whether it is a service dog, an emotional support animal, or a regular pet, is to always ask an owner before you pet a dog. Because you don't know how a pet is going to respond. Every dog, every animal is different. And so approaching a pet could be scary for them and for you because we don't know what it is. Now, we're at a DV agency, so there is a lot of trauma. And many people know that fear can be scary, and it comes across as aggression sometimes. It can come across as like sadness. It can come across as nothing sometimes. So there's a lot of responses that can happen. Animals react very similarly. And so to assume that can't happen isn't always right. And so service dogs can also experience domestic violence and have negative responses as well. So if they kind of have a poor response to things, I don't want to use the word normal, it's real.
No, I think that's a good point. This is an animal that is, you can say other pets that are not service animals. Service animals are glued to you 24/7. So you being yelled at by a stranger, you encountering daily conflicts and turmoil, those are all going to be quite traumatizing for the dog. So yeah, like the amount of, and also just like as a human, imagine like you're responsible to take care of someone else all day, and then you can't like fully understand everything that's going on. You see anger, you see sadness, that's a lot to process, and kind of going into that, the etiquette of it too. Like another big one I would say is giving them treats, because even though you really want to give every doggy a treat, they're all super really good dogs. It's also how they're learning to do their task. They're trying to stay focused. That's how they get trained, and so giving them treats like all the time or just your scraps can actually be very disruptive to the services that they're giving.
So one of the things I did just say was emotional support animals. And a couple years ago, emotional support animals were able to fly. And there's been a change in what that is. And it's kind of important to understand what emotional support animals are. And so emotional support animals are recognized by the Fair Housing Act, and they are animals they have to be able to be potty trained and are appropriately behaved and are recognized as support to an owner and That is what qualifies them. They also have to have a note by a qualified professional in order to be recognized as an emotional support animal. They do not just have to be a dog. There can be a variety of animals as well.
But there are differences in, as you were saying, like the laws have changed. So ESAs don't have the full protections and legal right-of-ways to like airplanes, to housing, that a service animal does.
No.
I think at this point, ESA's the only waiver in regards to fees is in housing.
Right. They can't go into the hotels the same way. They can't go on the planes. They are not able to go into shelters. They really are able to only go into rentals and apartments, and it's kind of where they're able to be at. But they are very important because that can really be healing to people. And it's important to understand that it is not, if somebody has an emotional support animal, it is really important to not unvalidate that. It is a real thing and can be very important to an individual's lifestyle. It can be a way of how somebody is able to function.
I would say that ESAs, they provide comfort, and as a DV organization, when we're talking about survivors, we're talking about victims and stuff, and we're looking for like support groups. It's like the biggest support is your pet, what it may be. And when we're talking about like victims who flee, if you can't flee, get on an airplane, you can't get on the train, well, how do you take your pet with you? And you need this emotional support animal. Or if you need to go to the shelter, right? Like, you can't take the pet with you because that's not part of the fair housing, And if you end up homeless and a DV person, really think about what an animal is. It's warmth, it's comfort, it is protection, it is companionship. Because often if you are on the streets, especially if you're in DV, you are lonely and you don't have a support system. That's your support system, And so, like, underestimating the value that ESAs have to survivors of trauma and homeless, and, it really cannot be understated that, like, we, as in our organizations, it's been difficult because the amount of victims that we have that have to give up their animals when they're already giving up their home, their car, their income. And now, where are you going to put them? You can't house it here, you can't bring it to your friends because they don't qualify under this ESA. They're not a service animal. You can't take it on the shelter. Like I said, you can't even move with this animal, and so you're really forced to like just forfeit everything. And that is just another barrier to preventing people from really leaving that situation.
And the numbers are so underreported on the amount of individuals in animal shelters that have left their animals there because of abuse, as well as people who have decided to not flee because of their animals. And I say that they're underrepresented because some places will not ask about it. Some people have not fled because of it, so they haven't shared it. And it's really unfortunate because you're right. Some people, they don't have children. Some people, they've been so isolated, and that is who they are able to confide in. It is their one source of connection, and have not put them down. It is their one piece that have kept them connected to the world. It is their piece of hope. It is whatever it has kept them in this world. And it's almost dehumanizing is the word, because they've been treated worse than the animals to an extent. And some of these animals have also been abused in the relationships. And so both are being treated awful. And so the emotional support that they're getting, whether they're considered ESAs or not, is they too have a bond that is unbreakable. And a lot of times it's not seen as how amazingly important that they are to each other.
Yeah, and I think you brought up also a good point too, that the animal in a lot of these DV situations can be used to leverage over a victim, and they can also be abused. Someone hitting them, leaving them in the cold, not feeding them. And if you're a caring owner, you don't want to see that, the worst of humanity happen to your pet. You may stay in that situation. Or your other options, like, now I have to give this animal up, even though you don't want to, but it's safer for them, than to leave them with the abuser at their home. And so, like, not being able to take your animal, being stripped of your family and that support, and knowing the psychological hold that an abuser could use your animal against you, because, I ain't gonna say the dog's like a child, but we all could, but we love our animals quite a bit. So, right.
I mean, there's also this idea that your children grow up. Your animals, they always depend on you. And so it's a different connection. It's not that they're like your children. They're just different. They always have to say, I'm hungry. My water's out. I got to go to the bathroom. So it's just a different connection that they emotionally depend on you. You emotionally depend on them. It is as much of a dependency of one another.
So addressing this issue in which survivors have to give up their pets, really, the sad truth is there's not any services in Tacoma, Pierce County. But in King County and Seattle's Humane Society, they do have what they call the SPOT program, which allows domestic violence survivors to house their pet until they're able to transition into a permanent home. And so it's basically allows them to foster their pet until they're able to finally leave. It would be lovely to see that same kind of thing get spread to Pierce County, because I know we in our organization could definitely see that. And another service, being in Pierce County in the military, is the positivity service dogs. So these are, the military has really come together to train service dogs for its veterans. And this is a group working out of St. Paul, Minnesota, but it is for the veterans and their military family. So we are seeing some people starting to recognize that this is, a service and a need that we need within the community. And as I was saying, we need it more locally for us as well. So thank you for listening and joining us today on Confabulation. I'm Pearl, this is Michelle, and our lovely Ollie. And we want to remind you that we're with our Sisters House, a domestic violence advocacy agency. So if you or anyone you know are suffering domestic violence, call us at 253-383-4275 or visit our website at oursistershouse.com.
A message from our executive producer about our sponsors after this.
Hi, I'm Skylar Trey, and I'm the executive producer here at Confabulation. I wanted to take a moment to speak about our partners at USServiceAnimals.org. They have provided us with a promo code that will get you a small discount for your services. The promo code is USSA Team 1. It will also be located on the screen somewhere throughout this episode many times, and found in the description box of this episode on any platform that you're watching it from. A few things about USServiceAnimals.org. They are the authority on legitimate emotional support animal letters with a nationwide mental health professional referral network. They also work with mental health professionals in every state to help pet owners see if they are eligible for an emotional support animal letter for housing. They were founded by lawyers. They've been in business since 2015 and have helped hundreds of thousands of people. And they also have a 24/7 live customer support and a full-time legal support team. They offer everything from vests, leashes, supplements, and collars to GPS trackers and dog training. And they also have some excellent reviews from customers. On Google alone, their review is 4.9 out of 5 stars. So I hope if you are looking for a emotional support animal letter or services when it comes to a service dog, that you will consider using our promo code with usserviceanimals.org. And we want to thank them for partnering with us and being willing to provide us a small contribution from any funds gained using our promo code. Thank you so much, and thank you for supporting Confabulation. I hope you have a great day.